Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're embarking on quite an intensive exploration into a truly monumental source, the biblical book of 2 Samuel.
That's right.
Our mission, well, it's what we always aim for, navigating these intricate narratives, pulling out the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight, and really helping you understand the core events, the key characters, and their profound implications.
Hmm.
Think of it as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about this foundational text. It's packed with surprising facts and honestly just compelling human drama.
It really is.
And our focus for this deep dive is entirely on the reign of King David. We're looking at everything from the immediate aftermath of Saul's death right through to the twilight of David's own rule.
Yeah.
It's a period just brimming with, well, breathtaking triumphs, some heart-wrenching tragedies, and these constantly shifting loyalties that profoundly shaped a nation.
And, this isn't just some dusty old historical record.
Sure.
2 Samuel is, well, it's a profound narrative about the very essence of leadership.
Right.
It explores the inevitable, often far-reaching consequences of the choices we make, the complex nature of faith, and those often turbulent dynamics within families. Really universal stuff.
Absolutely.
So we'll be exploring how David climbs to really unprecedented power, how he faces these immense personal and political challenges, and what those events reveal about human nature and maybe the art of governance, even for us today.
That's a great point. It really compels us to ask, doesn't it? What enduring lessons can we truly draw from a narrative this ancient?
Exactly.
About power dynamics, morality, the sheer weight of responsibility, and, the long-lasting effects of decisions, both individual and collective.
And we'll definitely be aiming to connect those dots for you throughout our discussion today.
Okay, let's dive right in. Our journey into 2 Samuel begins not with, say, a triumphant coronation, but with profound tragedy.
Yeah, it's heavy from the start.
It really is, the devastating death of King Saul and his beloved son Jonathan on Mount Gilboa. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 27, it sets this incredibly dramatic scene. You have this man, an Amalekite, arriving from Saul's camp. His clothes are torn, there's dust on his head. These are, universal signs of deep distress.
Right, classic signs of mourning or disaster.
Exactly. And he brings the grim news. Saul and Jonathan are dead. And he claims, interestingly, to have found Saul severely wounded and, at Saul's own request, delivered the final fatal blow.
Now, you'd think.
Yeah, you'd think in the ruthless political landscape of the ancient Near East, David might react with, well, elation, right? Maybe shower the messenger with rewards for bringing news of his rival's end.
The obstacle is gone.
Precisely. But David's reaction is completely unexpected. He responds with immense, profound grief. He tears his clothes. He leads his men in a lament.
Yeah.
We hear this genuine sorrow for both Saul, the man who hunted him, and Jonathan, his closest friend. It's encapsulated in that poignant refrain, repeated 3 times, "How the mighty have fallen."
It's incredibly powerful.
It really shows a depth of emotion and respect that goes way beyond mere political calculation. And in fact, despite the messenger clearly expecting a reward.
David orders him killed. Why? For daring to lay a hand on the anointed of Jehovah.
And what's truly insightful there is how David, by refusing to sort of opportunistically celebrate Saul's death,
Right.
and instead mourning genuinely, he immediately establishes this moral authority. It's distinct from the typical brutal power grabs of his era.
That's a great way to put it.
This wasn't just grief, it was like a foundational political statement. It demonstrated the kind of king he intended to be, one rooted in justice, not just raw power.
And that phrase, the anointed of Jehovah.
Exactly. When David orders the Amalekite killed for touching him, he's sending a powerful message. For our listeners, that title meant far more than just kingship.
Right, yeah.
It meant a king divinely chosen, consecrated by God, essentially untouchable, sacred.
So David's act isn't just revenge. No. It's a powerful declaration that he respects God's appointed authority, even in a rival. And this respect for divine order, for sacred kingship, was absolutely crucial for unifying a nation that had been, deeply fragmented by civil strife and that long, bitter feud between Saul and David.
Okay, so he's solidified his moral standing after Saul's death. But now he faces this huge task, uniting a fractured nation. And that journey is, well, it's fraught with cunning rivalries, unexpected betrayals.
It's not going to be easy.
Not at all. In 2 Samuel 2, verses 1 to 11, David, seeking divine guidance, makes a pivotal move to Hebron. And there the men of Judah come to him, and they anoint him king over the house of Judah. Now, his very first act as king tells you a lot about his character and his strategic thinking.
What does he do?
He sends a blessing to the people of Jabesh-Gilead. Why? For their courageous act of burying Saul's remains after the Philistines had desecrated them.
Showing respect for the previous dynasty.
Exactly. It demonstrates a desire to honor the past king, foster goodwill things essential for future unity. But the kingdom is still far from unified.
Right, because over in Israel.
Meanwhile, Abner, who was Saul's powerful army chief, takes Ishbosheth, Saul's surviving son, and makes him king over Israel.
So now you have two kings.
Immediately sets up this direct, simmering conflict between the house of David and the house of Saul. And it doesn't stay simmering for long.
Oh.
In 2 Samuel 2, verses 12 to 32, we get this initial deadly game or confrontation at the Pool of Gibeon.
Yeah, that's a brutal scene.
It really is. It's a contest between Joab's men, David's general, and Abner's men. 12 young men from each side are told to, quote, get up and let us have a competition.
And it just escalates horribly.
Instantly. It turns into this fight where all 24 die, and from there the full conflict just erupts. Then we see this dramatic pursuit of Abner by Asahel, Joab's brother.
Asahel was known for his speed, right?
Swift as a gazelle, the text says. He refuses to give up chasing Abner, even though Abner repeatedly warns him to turn back.
Abner doesn't want to kill him.
No, he says, why should I strike you down? How could I look your brother Joab in the face? But Asahel won't stop. So Abner kills him with a backward thrust of his spear. Just a tragic consequence of this escalating civil war.
And the immediate stark division of the kingdom here. David ruling Judah, Ishbosheth ruling Israel. It vividly underscored the immense challenges of consolidating power and achieving national unity.
It's a messy picture.
It is. This period of civil war is marked by these intense personal rivalries like that deadly contest at Gibeon and the tragic consequences of blood feuds like Asahel's death.
Yeah.
The kingdom is literally torn between old loyalties and new leadership. It demonstrates the extremely high personal and national price paid in these kinds of conflicts.
Which really brings up a question, doesn't it?
It does. How does a leader, even one anointed by divine will, navigate and ultimately unify a deeply divided people? Especially when those divisions are rooted in deeply entrenched loyalties and, very recent bloodshed.
It's not a simple switch.
No, it's a long, arduous process. It demands both strategic skill and really a profound understanding of human nature, of loyalty, grief, ambition, all of it.
And as time goes on, the narrative clearly shows David's side gaining strength, while Saul's house just steadily weakens.
There's a definite momentum shift.
Yeah. 2 Samuel 3 verse 1 explicitly states this contrast. David's house kept getting stronger, while Saul's house kept getting weaker. It feels like a divinely orchestrated power shift. We also learn about David's growing family, several sons born to him in Hebron during this time, which solidifies his lineage and his future.
Names like Amnon, Absalom, figures who become important later.
Exactly. Amnon, Chileab, Absalom, Adonijah, Shephatiah. Ephraim's 6 sons from different wives, each reinforcing his growing power base. Then comes a major turning point.
Abner's defection.
Right. In 2 Samuel 3, verses 10 to 39, we see Abner's growing conflict with Ishbosheth. It's triggered by an accusation about Saul's concubine, Rizpah.
Ishbosheth accuses him, and Abner is furious.
Absolutely furious. This leads to Abner's strategic decision to defect and join David. He makes a covenant with David to bring all Israel under David's rule.
And David has a condition.
A crucial one.
Yeah.
The return of his wife Michal, Saul's daughter, who'd been taken from him and given to another man.
Right.
Abner agrees, and he successfully gathers the elders of Israel and Benjamin, turning their hearts toward David. It looks like unification is imminent.
But then
this shocking, brutal act. Joab, David's fiercely loyal but utterly ruthless general, murders Abner in the gate of Hebron without David's knowledge or consent.
ostensibly for revenge for Asahel.
That's the stated reason.
Right.
But it's undeniably also a powerful political move. Eliminate a potential rival to Joab's own influence, right? Abner was arguably the most powerful man in Israel besides David himself.
And this period is just defined by this complex interplay of loyalty, betrayal, raw power. Abner's calculated attempt to switch sides after falling out with Ishbosheth. It reveals the fluid, often ruthless nature of the political landscape. His move would have certainly sped up unification under David.
No question.
But Joab's cold-blooded assassination, it just underscores the brutal realities of power and these personal vendettas within David's own inner circle.
Joab saw Abner as a threat.
Definitely, either to David's absolute control or, maybe more pointedly, to his own paramount position as chief commander. David had just made this pact with Abner.
So how do we square David's reaction, his public, genuine mourning for Abner, his declaration of innocence, with the undeniable political benefit he gets from Abner's removal?
It's complex.
Yeah.
David meticulously distances himself from the brutality. He fasts, makes his people weep, curses Joab privately, declares, "I am innocent of the blood of Abner."
Right.
Yet in that same chapter, verse 39, he publicly acknowledges Joab's formidable power and ruthlessness. He says, "Today I am weak, although anointed king, and these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too brutal for me."
So he's powerful, but not entirely unchallenged.
Exactly. It highlights a king who understands that Joab is a necessary, albeit dangerous, asset. A tool he can't quite control, but perhaps can't rule without either.
Okay, so Abner's gone. The ultimate demise of Saul's house now really clears the path for David's unified reign.
The final obstacle falls.
Right. In 2 Samuel 4, verses 1 to 12, we see how two brothers, Rechab and Baanah, assassinate Ishbosheth while he's resting at midday.
Another opportunistic killing.
They bring his head to David in Hebron, clearly expecting a reward for eliminating David's last rival from Saul's line.
And David's reaction.
Swift and uncompromising. Just like with the Amalekite, he condemns and executes them for striking down an innocent man in his own house.
Consistent.
Very Mao. He explicitly compares their act to the Amalekite who claimed to have killed Saul, reiterating his unwavering stance against harming the anointed of Jehovah, or, in this case, a righteous man in his own home.
So no reward for them.
Quite the opposite. He orders their hands and feet cut off, and they're hung up by the pool in Hebron. But Ishbosheth's head, respectfully buried in Abner's tomb.
Wow.
Then finally, in 2 Samuel 5, verses 1 to 5, with all rivals from Saul's line gone, all the tribes of Israel come to David in Hebron.
The moment of unity.
Yes. They acknowledge him as their own flesh and bone. They recall his past leadership in battle, saying, "You yourself are the one who brought out and brought in Israel." They make a covenant with him before Jehovah, and they anoint him king over all Israel.
Finally.
And it notes his age, 30 when he became king over Judah, reigning there for 7.5 years. And then he'd reign 33 years in Jerusalem over all Israel and Judah for a total reign of 40 years.
So the complete demise of Saul's lineage through battle casualties and these deliberate assassinations, it really clears the path for David's undisputed unified rule. And David's consistent, stern response to those who try to climb the ladder through opportunistic violence, executing the Amalekite, executing Rechab and Baanah, that's critical. It strategically reinforces his moral authority. It shows his commitment to legitimate rule, distinguishing his rise from just, opportunism or simple power grabs.
So his path was complicated.
Oh, absolutely. David's path to undisputed kingship was definitely shaped by political maneuvers, shifting allegiances, the violent removal of rivals. No doubt about it.
Right.
But he consistently projected this image of justice, of divine mandate, of adhering to established moral principles. And that was fundamental in laying the groundwork for a truly unified and stable kingdom. He set a clear precedent for what a king anointed by Jehovah should look like, even amidst the brutality.
Okay, so the kingdom is unified. Now David sets about establishing its core institutions. First up, a new capital, and bringing the most sacred object into it.
Big moves. Consolidation time.
Big moves indeed. We turn to 2 Samuel 5, verses 6 to 10. David leads his forces against the Jebusites in Jerusalem and successfully captures the stronghold of Zion.
A strategically brilliant choice for a capital.
Absolutely. He establishes Jerusalem as his new capital, builds up the city, makes it the city of David. And you're right, it was brilliant strategically. While
It was neutral territory, right.
Yep.
Belonged to neither Judah nor Israel originally.
Exactly, and it was naturally defensible, a perfect central hub for the newly unified kingdom.
Smart politics.
Very. Then, in 2 Samuel 6, verses 1 to 19, we see David's determination to bring the Ark of Jehovah, the Ark of the Covenant, to this new capital.
The religious heart of the nation.
Precisely. But the first attempt, it doesn't go well.
No, this is the incident.
Right. They try to transport the ark on a new wagon, which wasn't the prescribed method. It was supposed to be carried on poles by Levites. As they reach the threshing floor of Nacon and the oxen stumble, Uzzah reaches out to steady the ark.
And he's struck dead.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah. Jehovah's wrath flares up, and Uzzah dies right there. It's a stark warning.
A terrifying reminder of the ark's holiness.
Definitely. So, the ark is diverted to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. It stays there for 3 months and actually brings blessing to Obed-Edom's entire household.
Interesting contrast. Blessing when handled properly, danger when not.
Exactly. Then David tries again, this time successfully, following the proper procedures with sacrifices and David himself dancing exuberantly before Jehovah.
Yeah, he's wearing a linen ephod, like a priest almost.
Right. He offers burnt offerings, communion sacrifices, dances with all his might. He brings the ark safely into the city of David amidst shouting and the sound of the horn. A huge moment.
And the symbolism there, you just can't overstate it. Choosing Jerusalem wasn't just political neutrality.
No.
By bringing the ark, the central symbol of God's presence, to Jerusalem, David transformed it. It became both the undeniable political and spiritual heart of the unified kingdom.
Fusing those two authorities.
Absolutely. That fusion was a hallmark of his reign. And regarding Uzzah's death, it serves as that stark reminder of the ark's sanctity and the strict rules for handling sacred objects.
The Mosaic law was clear.
Very clear. Only specific Levites could carry it, and only by its poles. Touching it was absolutely forbidden. David learned a hard, tragic lesson about divine boundaries and the real consequences of violating sacred commands.
And he applied that lesson.
He did. He successfully brings the ark into the city with the appropriate reverence and ceremony the second time around. Lesson learned.
Okay, so the ark is in Jerusalem. David's next ambition is truly monumental, and it leads to a prophecy that will echo through centuries.
The Davidic covenant.
Exactly. In 2 Samuel 7, verses 1-3, David's living in his new cedar palace, a gift from King Hiram of Tyre, showing his international standing. And he expresses this earnest desire to build a permanent house, a grand temple for Jehovah. He feels it's wrong for him to live in splendor while the ark is just in a tent.
Seems like a noble intention.
It does, right. But then in verses 4-17, the prophet Nathan brings a message from Jehovah, and God declines David's offer.
He says no to the temple.
For now, yes. Jehovah states he hasn't dwelled in a house since bringing Israel out of Egypt, indicating he has a different plan. And instead, and this is huge for me, Jehovah promises to build a house for David.
Not a physical building.
No, a lasting dynasty, a continuous line of kings. The promise is that David's kingdom will be established and his throne will endure forever.
Forever. That's the game changer.
Absolutely. This is the Davidic covenant. It cements David's lineage as the royal line, establishes this divine endorsement that would echo throughout Israelite history.
And it's absolutely pivotal. It shifts the focus from a temporary physical temple David wants to build to this perpetual, enduring dynasty for David's family. The promise of a kingdom that will endure forever. It's not just a divine thumbs up for David's rule, it's a guarantee of his future lineage on the throne.
And it lays a groundwork for something even bigger.
Exactly. It lays the foundation for the expectation of a Messiah, a future king from David's line who would rule eternally. It transforms a temporary monarchy into this promise of everlasting divine rule through David's descendants. It becomes a foundational promise for the whole future of the Israelite monarchy and beyond. It influences theology for millennia, which really makes you think.
Yeah.
What does it mean for a promise to be eternal or forever in that kind of context? How does it play out through subsequent human actions, choices, even failures? It suggests a divine purpose that transcends individual reigns and human flaws.
David's response to this incredible promise is just profound humility, overwhelming gratitude.
Understandably.
Which then quickly translates into more military victories and establishing this remarkably well-ordered administration. In 2 Samuel 7, verses 18-29, David goes before Jehovah and just pours out his heart.
His prayer is amazing.
It is a prayer of deep humility, wonder, gratitude for this immense, unmerited favor shown to him and his house. He acknowledges God's greatness, his unique relationship with Israel, saying, "What more can David say to you when you yourself know your servant, sovereign Lord Jehovah?" He's just floored. Following this, 2 Samuel 8 details David's extensive military successes. He decisively defeats the Philistines, Moabites, Syrians, Edomites, expanding the kingdom's borders significantly.
Consolidating power.
Big time. These victories secured Israel's position, brought in immense wealth, gold, silver, bronze, which David dedicates to Jehovah. Israel becomes a powerful, respected empire in the Near East.
And the text emphasizes God's hand in it.
Yes, explicitly. Jehovah kept giving David victory wherever he went. The chapter ends by listing his key officials managing this growing empire.
Right. Joab is army commander.
Joab, commander of the army, Jehoshaphat, recorder, Zadok and Ahimelech, priests, Sariah, secretary, Benaiah, commander of his elite guard, the Cherethites and Pelethites.
A well-oiled machine.
And even David's own sons are mentioned as serving as priests, showing their high status and the integration of his family into the administration.
So this period really marks a true zenith for David's power and influence. After getting that huge divine promise, David doesn't just sit back.
No, he keeps going.
He keeps consolidating power through military strength and effective governance. His campaigns expand borders, solidify regional influence. Israel becomes a real player. And his meticulous organization of officials shows his commitment to effective administration. He establishes this formal government structure needed for an expanding kingdom. He wasn't just a warrior, he was an astute administrator too.
Yeah, that's clear.
So ultimately, David successfully sets up a central capital, brings in the Ark as the religious centerpiece, receives this pivotal divine covenant for his dynasty, and then secures his kingdom through military strength and a capable administrative system.
It's truly a golden age.
It really is for early Israel, laying a solid foundation for the future. But as we'll see, even golden ages can tarnish.
Right. As David's power and kingdom reach their height, we start to see the personal side of his rule. And it's often marked by both extraordinary kindness and, well, devastating moral failures.
The cracks begin to show.
Yeah, let's dig into this. First, an act of incredible kindness. In 2 Samuel 9, David remembers his solemn covenant with Jonathan,
His dear friend.
his dearest friend, and he asks, "Is there anyone still left of the house of Saul that I may show him loyal love for Jonathan's sake?"
Which is remarkable, really. Usually you'd eliminate potential rivals.
Exactly. In that ancient world, wiping out the previous dynasty was standard practice. But David asks this. He discovers Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son.
The one who was crippled.
Yes, crippled in both feet from a fall when he was 5 years old during the chaos after Saul and Jonathan died. David, true to his word, restores all of Saul's land and property to Mephibosheth.
Wow.
And remarkably, decrees that Mephibosheth will always eat at the king's table, like one of David's own sons.
That's huge honor and protection.
Huge. And Ziba, Saul's former servant, with his large household, 15 sons, 20 servants they're assigned to serve Mephibosheth and manage his restored estate. It's an incredible act of grace and faithfulness to a promise.
And the sheer unexpectedness and generosity of this act towards Mephibosheth, it truly stands out. As a potential rival, a descendant of Saul and Jonathan, Mephibosheth could easily have been seen as a threat. Instead, David shows this profound commitment to his covenant with Jonathan. It highlights his capacity for compassion, for personal loyalty, even in that cutthroat political world.
It shows a different side of him.
It does. This act of grace contrasts so sharply with the earlier political assassinations that paved his way to the throne, Abner, Ishbosheth. It reveals a deeper, more humane aspect of David's character. He values personal vows, relationships, maybe above political expediency here. It sets a remarkable moral standard for his reign.
But then, things take a turn. A seemingly minor diplomatic incident quickly escalates into a major conflict. And this tragically sets the stage for David's more serious personal failing.
Ammonite incident.
2 Samuel 10. David hears that the Ammonite king Nahash has died. Nahash had shown kindness to David in the past, perhaps during David's exile from Saul. So David sends a delegation to express condolences to the new king, Hanan, a standard diplomatic courtesy.
But Hanan misreads it.
Badly. His princes convince him David's delegation are spies sent to scout the city. So King Hanan grievously humiliates David's messenger.
Shaves off half their beards.
Yes, shaves off half their beards and cuts their garments in half right up to their buttocks. An outrageous act, a profound insult in that culture.
Humiliating. Leads directly to war.
Inevitably. It sparks a large-scale war with Ammon and their powerful Syrian allies. The Ammonites hire significant mercenary forces, 20,000 foot soldiers from Beth-Rehob and Zobah, the king of Makkah, with 1,000 men, Ishtob with 12,000 men.
So they're ready for a fight.
They think they are. David sends Joab and all his mighty men, and David's generals, Joab and his brother Abishai, lead Israel to decisive victories against both the Ammonites and the Syrians.
Joab's rallying cry is pretty famous.
It is. Be courageous, and let us be courageous on behalf of our people and on behalf of the cities of our God, and Jehovah will do what is good in his eyes. Great leadership. The Syrians are routed. King Hadazer's army is severely defeated, 700 charioteers, 40,000 horsemen struck down. It brings great renown to David. The defeated Syrians make peace with Israel, become their servants. A major victory.
And this incident vividly illustrates how quickly a seemingly minor diplomatic misstep or a grave insult can just spiral into a major regional conflict.
Yeah.
It underscores the delicate nature of interkingdom relations back then. Honor, respect, they were paramount. The insult to David's messengers was seen as an affront to David himself, to Israel as a nation.
So David had to respond.
He did. It shows his readiness to defend his kingdom's honor, secure its borders through military might. It showcases his effective leadership in external affairs, even as the foreshadowing of internal struggles starts to loom.
And that victory, as you hinted, comes right before.
Right before the most infamous episode of David's life. A subtle, perhaps ironic juxtaposition. Public triumph followed by private catastrophe.
And then it happens. The most infamous, tragic episode of David's reign unfolds the story of Bathsheba and Uriah.
Here we go.
Here we go, 2 Samuel 11. The narrative begins in spring, at the time when kings go out to war. But David remains in Jerusalem. His army, led by Joab, is out fighting the Ammonites, besieging Rabbah,
While the king stays home.
while the king stays home. One evening, from his rooftop, David sees a beautiful woman bathing. He inquires about her, learns she is Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite.
One of his own loyal soldiers. One of the mighty men, even.
Exactly, one of his best. He sends messengers, takes her, commits adultery with her, and she becomes pregnant.
A disaster waiting to happen.
David immediately tries to cover it up. He sends for Uriah from the battlefield. His plan: get Uriah to go home, sleep with his wife, make it look like the child is his. Simple, right?
Except Uriah foils the plan.
Completely.
Yeah.
Uriah, this man of unwavering loyalty and integrity, refuses to go home and enjoy comforts while his comrades are in the field and the Ark of Jehovah is in a tent.
His famous quote.
It's incredible. The Ark, Israel, and Judah are dwelling in temporary shelters, and my lord Joab and my lord's servants are camping in the open field. Should I then go to my house to eat and drink and lie down with my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do this.
It's just pure integrity. It highlights David's failure even more.
It really does. Faced with Uriah's steadfastness, David resorts to a darker, truly heinous scheme. He writes a letter to Joab,
The infamous letter.
instructing Joab to place Uriah at the deadliest point of the battle and then withdraw from him, ensuring Uriah's death. Sent by Uriah's own hand, no less.
Chilling.
Joab carries out the order. Uriah is killed in battle.
Yep.
After Bathsheba observed the customary mourning period, David takes her as his wife, cover-up complete, or so he thinks.
And this sequence of events, it marks such a stark, devastating turning point in David's reign in his personal life. His abuse of immense royal power, culminating in both adultery and the orchestrated murder of a loyal soldier. It reveals how even a divinely chosen, previously righteous king can fall into grievous sin.
It's shocking.
It is. The layers of deception trying to frame Uriah, directly orchestrating his death, expose this profound moral failure at the very highest level of leadership. David, the man described as being after God's own heart, commits acts that are just clearly abhorrent. They violate fundamental moral codes.
Which brings up that question again.
Right. To what extent does unchecked power inevitably corrupt? And what are the long-term, far-reaching consequences of these kinds of moral compromises? Not just for the individual in power, but for their entire family, the kingdom they lead. This narrative serves as a stark warning about the corrupting influence of power when it's not held accountable, even for the most revered leaders.
But the story isn't over. The prophet Nathan courageously confronts David, revealing the divine consequences of his actions.
A pivotal moment of accountability.
Yes. 2 Samuel 12, verses 1 to 15. Nathan approaches David with this compelling parable. A rich man with many flocks takes a poor man's single cherished ewe lamb to feed his guest.
Setting the trap.
David, enraged by the injustice in the story, pronounces a harsh judgment against the rich man, declares he deserves to die and must pay back 4 times the value.
And Nathan springs the trap.
With devastating clarity. You are the man. Nathan then reveals Jehovah's direct message. Because David despised Jehovah's word, acted wickedly, severe calamity would arise directly from David's own household. His wives would be publicly shamed. The sword would never depart from his house.
Heavy consequence.
Immediate and heavy. The first consequence is tragic. Bathsheba's child, born of their adultery, becomes gravely ill. David fasts intensely, prays, lies on the ground all night during the child's sickness, but the child dies. David's deep mourning then ceases after the child's death. which surprises his servants. He gets up, washes, worships, and eats. He comforts Bathsheba. Subsequently, they have another son, Solomon.
Who Jehovah loved.
Yes, whom Jehovah loves and names Jedediah, meaning beloved of Jehovah. A sign of forgiveness, perhaps, but the consequences Nathan foretold are still coming. And the narrative briefly shifts back to the war. In verses 20 to 31, Joab captures the Ammonite capital, Rabbah, but Joab strategically sends for David to come lead the final assault.
Letting David take the credit.
Exactly. Allowing David to publicly claim the victory, take the massive spoil, including the king's heavy gold crown, maintaining the image of the victorious king.
And Nathan's confrontation. It's such a powerful, courageous example of a prophet holding even the most powerful king accountable.
It really is.
It shows that no one, not even the anointed king, is above divine law or moral judgment. The immediate tragic consequence, the child's death, is severe. But it's explicitly presented as just the beginning of the calamity from your own house that Nathan prophesied. It sets the stage for the turbulent events to come.
Yeah.
And what truly stands out here is that while David genuinely repents, Psalm 51 is traditionally linked to this, and is forgiven by Jehovah in terms of his relationship with God, the earthly repercussions, the severe consequences of his actions, they are not erased. They tragically reverberate throughout his family for generations. It demonstrates that divine forgiveness doesn't always negate the natural, painful outcomes of human choices.
That's a crucial distinction.
It is. So ultimately, this whole sequence highlights that even divinely appointed, highly esteemed figures are subject to moral law, divine judgment. And their actions have profound, lasting impact, not just on their own spiritual standing, but on their family, their kingdom. Everything.
And that predicted calamity from your own house starts to unfold quickly, tragically, starting with a horrifying act within David's immediate family.
The prophecy begins to bear its bitter fruit.
Yeah, let's dig into this. 2 Samuel 13, verses 1 to 22. David's oldest son, Amnon, becomes consumed with lust for his beautiful half-sister, Tamar. She's Absalom's full sister. With the cunning, wicked advice of his friend Jonadab, described as a very shrewd man, Amnon feigns illness to get Tamar to his chamber, claims only she can make him food to feel better.
A manipulative ploy.
A terrible one. He then violently rapes her. Tamar's subsequent deep distress, tearing her decorated robe, putting ashes on her head, and Absalom's immediate seething yet quiet rage upon learning of it are vividly described.
And David's reaction.
David is described as being very angry, but crucially, he takes no decisive action. He administers no justice against Amnon for this heinous crime.
He does nothing.
Nothing meaningful. He doesn't punish Amnon, doesn't intervene. He leaves the injustice completely unaddressed.
And this horrifying, deeply disturbing event within David's own family, it's a direct, chilling fulfillment of Nathan's earlier prophecy. Calamity will arise from your own house.
No doubt about it.
David's anger is noted, but his inaction is the critical turning point here.
Yeah.
He fails to uphold justice within his own household. Why? Maybe because of his own recent moral failings, a compromised sense of authority, maybe a desire not to highlight more scandal within his family. We don't know for sure.
But the result is devastating.
Absolutely. The broader implication is that David's failure to enforce justice here directly fuels Absalom's simmering resentment. It sets the tragic stage for future violence, rebellion, profound instability within the royal household. It shows how personal failures of judgment can have devastating public consequences, particularly when a leader hesitates to uphold justice for those under their care, especially their own children.
So Absalom, consumed by rage, by his father's inaction, takes matters into his own hands, leads to more tragedy and his own exile.
The cycle of violence continues.
Yes. In 2 Samuel 13, verses 23 to 33, 2 full years later, Absalom, meticulously planning his revenge, hosts a grand sheep-shearing feast, invites all the king's sons.
Including Amnon.
At the height of the festivities, Absalom orders his servants, kill Amnon, tells them, be strong and courageous, do not be afraid.
Cold-blooded revenge.
The king's other sons flee in terror. David gets a distorted report that all his sons have been killed. He's overcome with immense grief, tearing his clothes, lying on the ground, before Jonadab clarifies that only Amnon is dead.
Small comfort, really.
True. Absalom, immediately after the murder, escapes. He flees to his mother's family in Geshur, where he stays in exile for 3 years, out of David's reach. David mourns Amnon for many days, but eventually, the text says, his heart longs for Absalom. It reveals these complex emotions of a grieving father missing his son, even a son who's now a murderer.
And Absalom's calculated, brutal revenge. It just highlights the deep fissures, the breakdown of authority within David's family.
Yeah.
The murder of Amnon, combined with David's earlier inaction about Tamar, creates this incredibly dangerous dynamic.
Yeah.
Personal grievances escalate into horrific violence and ultimately political instability.
It's a mess.
It really is. It's a clear example of how unresolved trauma, unaddressed injustice can just fester and lead to further devastation within a royal house.
Right.
Which makes you ask.
How does a leader keep control?
Yeah, right. How does a leader effectively maintain control and stability in their kingdom when their own family is tearing itself apart from within? Driven by these unaddressed grievances, this thirst for vengeance, it reveals the profound challenge of leading a nation when your own house isn't in order. It shows how personal sin can erode a king's moral authority, even in the eyes of his own family.
So after 3 years of Absalom's exile, Joab, David's ever-strategic, maybe manipulative general, devises a plan to bring him back.
Joab the fixer.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah.
In 2 Samuel 14, verses 1 to 24, Joab realizes David is longing for Absalom. So he sends a wise woman from Tekoa to David.
Other parable.
Exactly. She presents this cunning parable about a family dispute. Her 2 sons, one killed the other, the family demanding she hand over the killer, which would leave her with no heir. It's designed to elicit David's judgment and, by extension, his compassion for Absalom's situation.
Clever.
David, astute as he is, eventually figures out Joab is behind it. He says, "Is the hand of Joab with you in all this?" She admits it. And David agrees to bring Absalom back.
But it's not a full reconciliation.
Not at all. In verses 25 to 33, David allows Absalom to return to Jerusalem. But, significantly, he refuses to see him for 2 full years. Just lets him live in the city, but won't grant him an audience.
That sends a message.
It does. The text pauses here to describe Absalom's striking beauty. There is no man in all Israel as handsome as Absalom, it says. Notes his famously thick hair. When he cut it once a year, it weighed 200 shekels by the royal standard. That's like 5 pounds.
Wow. A charismatic figure.
Definitely. Finally, after 2 years, Absalom forces Joab's hand. He sets Joab's barley field on fire to get his attention.
Desperate measures.
It works. Joab goes to David and David relents. He sees his son. Absalom bows down. David kisses him. A temporary reconciliation, it seems. But clearly, without full restoration of trust or affection, the underlying issues are still there.
And Joab's continued role here as David's pragmatic enforcer, political strategist. His clever use of the Tekoite woman shows his shrewdness in manipulating David's emotions for what he perceives as the kingdom's best interest, ending the strife, bringing the heir apparent back. However, David's decision, let Absalom return, but then banish him from his presence for 2 years, it highlights the lingering tension, the unresolved issues. This wasn't a complete healing, more like a cautious, partial reintegration.
Suggesting David's still struggling.
Still struggling with the consequences of his inaction regarding Tamar, maybe distrustful of Absalom's motives. So what this really means is, while Absalom is physically back in Jerusalem, the underlying resentments, the lack of true forgiveness, the wounds from the past, they haven't been addressed.
Creates a dangerous situation.
Deeply volatile. Dangerous. A ticking time bomb for the kingdom's stability, really. Because Absalom is given time and space right there in the capital to plot.
And that ticking time bomb inevitably explodes. Absalom, back in Jerusalem, begins this calculated popular uprising against his own father.
The rebellion begins.
Yeah, the story takes a dramatic turn in 2 Samuel 15, verses 1 to 12. Absalom, with a shrewd eye for public opinion, starts a deliberate campaign to usurp his father's throne.
How does he do it?
He gets himself chariots and horses, 50 men to run ahead of him, projecting this image of royal authority. More importantly, he sets himself up at the city gate.
Where people come for justice.
Exactly. He intersects people seeking justice from the king. He listens to their cases, expresses sympathy, and subtly turns their hearts towards himself. Tells them their case is good, but look, there is no one deputized by the king to hear you. Then adds, if only I were appointed judge in the land, then everyone with a grievance could come to me, and I would give him justice.
Undermining David, positioning himself. Very clever.
Very. Then he goes to Hebron, the place David was first crowned king, remember, under the guise of fulfilling a religious vow. But it's a thin cover for the rebellion he launches from there. He sends spies throughout Israel. As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, say, Absalom is king in Hebron.
And it works.
The conspiracy gathers strength quickly. The number of people following Absalom swells dramatically. Crucially, he wins over Ahithophel the Gilonite, David's most respected counselor.
Ouch. Losing Ahithophel is a huge blow.
Massive.
Yeah.
So in verses 13 to 37, David gets the alarming news. Absalom has won the hearts of Israel. The conspiracy is strong. Faced with this overwhelming support for Absalom, David makes a difficult decision.
To flee Jerusalem.
Yes, to avoid direct conflict within the city walls, which would cause terrible destruction to the city and its people. A painful but perhaps wise choice.
And we see real loyalty emerge, too.
We do. The unwavering loyalty of Ittai the Gittite, a foreigner, commander of David's Gittite guard. He declares his allegiance to David no matter what. Wherever my lord the king may be, whether for death or for life, there your servant will be. Incredible loyalty. David strategically sends the ark back to Jerusalem with the priests, Zadok and Abiathar. He understands its sacredness, its symbolic importance to the city. Let it stay there.
And he sets up a counterintelligence plan.
Right. He instructs Hushai the Archite, another loyal counselor, to pretend to defect to Absalom, stay in Jerusalem, gain Absalom's trust, and crucially, counter the advice of Ahithophel.
A risky but brilliant move.
Very. Setting the stage for a battle of wits.
And the sheer speed and effectiveness of Absalom's strategy here, winning over the people, usurping the throne, it really stands out.
It's shocking how fast it happens.
It underscores David's vulnerability to internal threats, especially from his own charismatic son, who clearly understood public sentiment and grievances. David's swift decision to flee rather than fight in Jerusalem shows his wisdom, his concern for his people, and his strategic mind. He immediately deploys loyal agents like Hushai to gather intelligence, sabotage Absalom's plans from within.
Which brings up another big question.
Yeah. What does it mean for a king, even one as popular as divinely chosen as David, to be so unexpectedly vulnerable to an internal coup? Especially one orchestrated of his own kin.
Right.
It speaks volumes about those deep-seated grievances, maybe David's perceived distance or inaction, and the allure of a new, perhaps more decisive leader that Absalom seemed to embody at that moment.
Okay, so David is fleeing. The shifting loyalties, this complex game of counsel, continue to play out, with huge implications for the rebellion.
The drama intensifies on the road.
Definitely. In 2 Samuel 16, verses 1 to 4, Ziba, Mephibosheth's servant, meets David during his flight. He brings provisions, donkeys, bread, raisins, figs, wine. Seems loyal, right?
Seems so.
But he seizes the opportunity to slander Mephibosheth. Falsely claims Mephibosheth stayed behind in Jerusalem, hoping the kingdom of his grandfather Saul would be restored to him, saying, "Today the house of Israel will give me back the kingdom of my father."
And David believes him.
David, perhaps overwhelmed under immense pressure, trusts Ziba's apparent loyalty. He quickly believes the slander and, without checking, grants all of Mephibosheth's property to Ziba. A hasty decision reflecting the chaos of the moment.
Wow. Poor Mephibosheth.
Yeah. Then, in verses 5 to 14, as David proceeds near Bahurim, Shimei appears. He's a relative of Saul's house.
And he's not happy to see David.
Not at all. He starts loudly cursing David, throwing stones and dust at him and his men, accusing him of being a man of bloodshed responsible for the fall of Saul's house.
That's treasonous.
Abishai, Joab's fierce brother, wants to execute Shimei immediately for cursing the king. "Let me go over and take off his head."
But David stops him.
Yes. David refuses. He sees Shimei's cursing as potentially allowed, even ordained by Jehovah as a test or punishment. He chooses to endure it. He says, "Let him alone and let him curse, for Jehovah has told him to do so. Perhaps Jehovah will see my affliction and will repay me with good instead of his curse today."
That's remarkable self-awareness, humility even.
It shows profound spiritual introspection, accepting his own culpability for past actions. Meanwhile, back in Jerusalem, the battle of wits begins.
Ahithophel versus Hushai.
Right. 2 Samuel 16.15 to 17.23. Ahithophel, Absalom's brilliant new chief counselor, gives 2 key pieces of advice.
First,
Publicly lie with David's 10 concubines who were left to care for the palace, on the rooftop in sight of all Israel.
a symbolic act of taking the throne.
Irreversible.
Exactly. Designed to make Absalom abhorrent to David, make the break final, and irreversibly commit his followers. Absalom does it. Second piece of advice.
Strike now, strike fast.
Ahithophel advises Absalom to let him take 12,000 men and pursue David immediately that night. Strike while David is weary, disorganized, before he can regroup. A swift strike to kill only the king. Sound military advice.
Very sound. Probably would have worked.
Probably. But then Hushai, David's secret agent, gets his chance. He counters Ahithophel's advice.
What does he suggest?
He argues Ahithophel's plan is risky this time. David and his men are mighty warriors, fierce like a bear robbed of her cubs. A small force might fail, and that would demoralize everyone. Instead,
Go big.
Go big, gather all Israel from Dan to Beersheba, a massive army like the sand by the sea. Let Absalom lead them personally. An overwhelming attack would ensure decisive victory.
It sounds impressive, but it's designed to delay. Exactly. Hushai's advice is purely strategic deception, designed to buy David precious time to escape, cross the Jordan, and reorganize. And Absalom and the elders, they prefer Hushai's advice.
Why?
The text says it plainly. For Jehovah had decreed to frustrate the good advice of Ahithophel so that Jehovah might bring calamity on Absalom. Divine intervention.
Wow.
Ahithophel, seeing his counsel rejected, knows it's over. He recognizes Absalom's cause is lost. He goes home, puts his affairs in order, and hangs himself.
A dramatic end for a brilliant strategist.
Indeed. Hushai quickly sends word to David via the priests and their sons, cross the Jordan tonight. David gets the message and escapes.
And this whole intricate web, loyalty, shifting, strategic deception.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
It really is.
Ziba's opportunistic lie against Mephibosheth, Shimei's open vitriolic curse against the king, and then this high-stakes game of counsel between the brilliant Ahithophel and the clever Hushai. It all powerfully demonstrates the immense fragility of power and the absolute importance of good intelligence, counterintelligence in times of crisis. David's choice to endure Shimei's curses shows that moment of profound spiritual reflection, acknowledging divine discipline. But the bigger picture, Hushai's successful deception, portrayed as divinely orchestrated, is ultimately crucial for David's survival.
Buys him the time he needs.
Exactly. It shows that even amidst intense political intrigue, human scheming, there might be a larger unseen force at play. And that strategic delay sometimes can be the winning tactic, even when it seems counterintuitive to military minds.
So David's flight isn't just a retreat.
Not at all. It's this period of intense testing of loyalties. David relies on both divine intervention and the shrewdness, the faithfulness of his allies to navigate these treacherous waters of rebellion. It reveals the true character of everyone around him. #V, the Absalom rebellion's climax and aftermath, chapters 18 to 20.
Okay, the rebellion reaches its dramatic climax, a decisive battle that seals Absalom's fate but brings a new wave of profound grief to David.
The inevitable confrontation.
Yes. 2 Samuel 18, verses 1 to 18. David organizes his army. They've crossed the Jordan. They're in Mahanaim. He divides them into 3 divisions. Under Joab, under Abishai, and under Ittai the Gittite, the loyal foreigner.
David wants to go with them.
He does, but his men refuse. They say, "You are worth 10,000 of us. It is better that you send us help from the city." So David stays behind. But crucially, before the battle,
His order about Absalom.
he explicitly urges his commanders, "Deal gently with the young man Absalom for my sake." He says it to Joab, Abishai, Ittai in front of all the troops. His paternal love overrides everything, even the treason. The battle takes place in the dense forest of Ephraim. David's veteran forces decisively defeat Absalom's much larger but less organized army. 20,000 men are killed. The forest, the text says, devoured more people that day than the sword.
Rough terrain. Easy to get lost, ambushed.
Exactly. And in the chaos of the retreat, Absalom, riding his mule, gets his famously thick hair caught in the tangled branches of a large terebinth tree.
Just left hanging there.
Suspended between heaven and earth, his mule keeps going. He's trapped. One of Joab's men sees him, tells Joab. Joab asks why he didn't kill him. The man says, "Even if I were receiving 1,000 pieces of silver, I would not lift my hand against the king's son. We heard the king command you. Protect the young man Absalom for my sake."
He remembered the order. Joab didn't care.
Joab didn't care. Demonstrating his ruthless pragmatism, Joab says, "I'm not going to waste time here with you." He takes 3 darts, goes to Absalom, and thrusts them into his heart while he's still alive in the tree.
Brutal. Defiant.
Then 10 of Joab's armor-bearers surround Absalom and finish him off. They throw his body into a large pit in the forest, cover it with a huge heap of stones. A grim end.
And the narrator adds that point about Absalom's pillar.
Yes, pointedly mentions that Absalom had previously erected a pillar for himself in the king's valley because he had no son to preserve his name, a monument to his own vanity that would never be his tomb.
And that contrast, a father's enduring love versus a general's stark pragmatism.
Yeah.
It's so powerful here.
It really is.
David's instructions, spare Absalom, even though he's leading a rebellion, highlights the depth of his paternal love, his grief, overriding political necessity.
Yeah.
Joab's decision to kill Absalom directly, however brutal, however disobedient to the king's explicit order, shows his unwavering military mindset. His understanding that the rebellion wouldn't truly end as long as its figurehead, Absalom, remained alive. He prioritized the kingdom's stability over the king's personal wishes.
That tension again.
That tension between David's personal desires and Joab's cold military necessity. It's a recurring, defining theme in their complex relationship. It demonstrates that leading a kingdom often requires hard, unpopular choices, and sometimes, maybe, even defiance of the king for what the commander sees as the greater good of the realm.
So the news of victory quickly reaches David, but it's tragically overshadowed by that profound personal grief.
The messages are sent.
Yes. 2 Samuel 18, verses 19 to 33. Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, wants to run with the news. Joab tries to stop him. Knowing the news about Absalom will be painful for David, he sends a Cushite messenger instead. But Ahimaaz insists and outruns the Cushite anyway.
David's waiting anxiously.
Waiting between the 2 gates of the city, the watchman sees the runners. David asks the watchman, then asks Ahimaaz, then asks the Cushite, is the young man Absalom safe?
His first concern.
His only concern, it seems. When the Cushite finally delivers the news, may the enemies of my lord the king all be like that young man. David knows. His reaction is just shattering.
One of the most heartbreaking moments in the Bible.
Absolutely. His profound anguish is captured in that famous lament. My son, Absalom, my son, Absalom. If only I had died instead of you, Absalom, my son, my son. He retreats to the room above the gate and just weeps uncontrollably. The victory turns into mourning for everyone.
And David's unrestrained public grief for his rebellious son, even after the victory secured his throne, is an incredibly powerful depiction of a father's pain. Transcending his role as king, it shows the immense personal toll of leadership, the complex, often contradictory emotions involved in familial betrayal. The kingdom is saved, but David's heart is absolutely shattered.
Which raises another difficult question.
Yeah. How does a leader, especially a king, balance such profound personal grief with the immediate pressing need to inspire and lead a nation that just fought a devastating civil war for him? Soldiers who risked their lives.
In the acknowledgement.
They do. The people are waiting. His personal sorrow threatens to overshadow their sacrifice, the critical victory that saved his throne and their lives.
And David's deep mourning, though totally understandable, really does threaten to unravel the victory. It draws the ire of his soldiers, and it leads to this stark confrontation with Joab.
Joab steps in again, never shy.
Never. 2 Samuel 19, verses 1 to 8. Joab confronts David directly, bluntly, pragmatically.
What does he say?
He harshly tells David his excessive mourning is shaming his victorious soldiers, making them feel like they did something wrong. He says David hates those who love him and loves those who hate him. That if Absalom had lived and they had all died, David would be pleased.
Wow. Brutal honesty.
Brutal. He warns David, if you do not go out now and speak kindly to your servants, I swear by Jehovah that not a man will remain with you tonight. He tells him this will be worse than any disaster that has ever befallen him.
A necessary wake-up call.
A bold, almost insubordinate, but absolutely critical intervention. David needs to lead. So in verses 9 to 15, David heeds Joab's stern but necessary counsel. He overcomes his grief, goes down, and sits at the city gate.
Showing himself taking charge again.
Exactly. His appearance signals the end of his mourning. The people hear the king is at the gate, and they come before him. Particularly, the men of Judah move to escort him back across the Jordan to Jerusalem. An immense crowd gathers.
And Joab's willingness to deliver such a harsh, yet undoubtedly necessary intervention.
Yeah.
It's quite remarkable.
Yes.
His bluntness forces David to move beyond his personal grief for the sake of his kingdom, for the morale of his people. This moment clearly illustrates the difficult, often unglamorous decisions and confrontations required of those in command to maintain stability.
Even kings need tough counsel.
Exactly. It shows that even the most powerful leaders sometimes need challenging advice from their subordinates, especially when personal feelings threaten to undermine public duty and morale. And David, in this moment, shows he can listen to hard truths for the good of his kingdom, even when it's personally agonizing.
So David returns. Now he has to deal with the complex aftermath of the rebellion. Acts of reconciliation, lingering disputes, things that expose the deeper fault lines still present in this supposedly unified kingdom.
The cleanup is messy.
Very. First, Shimei. 2 Samuel 19, verses 16 to 23. Shimei, from Saul's clan, the one who cursed David so viciously during his flight. He rushes down to meet David as he crosses the Jordan, humbles himself, begs for forgiveness, brings 1,000 men of Benjamin with him as a show of support.
Abishai still wants him dead.
Abishai immediately says, Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for cursing Jehovah's anointed? But David again refuses. He demonstrates his desire for peace, for reconciliation. He says, "Should anyone be put to death in Israel today, don't I know that today I am king over Israel?" He pardons Shimei with an oath.
Showing mercy. Starting fresh.
Then Mephibosheth shows up. Verses 24 to 30, Jonathan's son. He hadn't attended to his feet, trimmed his mustache, or washed his clothes the entire time David was gone, clearly showing his distress and loyalty.
So Ziba lied.
Mephibosheth explains that Ziba, his servant, had deceived him, left him behind, slandered him to the king. Mephibosheth says he had intended to join David. His explanation sounds convincing.
In David's response this time.
Ambiguous, frustratingly so. He basically says, "Why speak any more about your affairs? I have decided. You and Ziba shall divide the land." He doesn't fully exonerate Mephibosheth or condemn Ziba, leaves the truth of Ziba's deception unresolved.
Why do you think he did that?
Maybe lingering doubts, weariness, a desire to just move past the issue quickly. Hard to say for sure, but it feels unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
Then there's Barzillai the Gileadite, verses 31 to 40, an elderly, wealthy man who graciously supplied David and his people during their flight. David honors him, offers to take him to Jerusalem and provide for him.
A reward for loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Barzillai declines due to his great age. He says he's 80, but sends his servant Chimham instead for David to bless. A nice moment of gratitude. But then,
Trail bruise again.
as David is brought back across the Jordan, a significant dispute erupts. Verses 41 to 43, between the men of Judah and the men of Israel.
Over what?
Over who has the greater claim, the greater right to escort the king back. Judah claims kinship. The king is our close relative. Israel counters, saying they have 10 parts in the king, a greater claim than Judah, and feel disrespected for not being consulted first. The argument gets heated.
Uh-oh. The old tribal tensions resurfacing.
Exactly. It highlights the persistent rivalries that still exist right beneath the surface of David's unified kingdom.
And this messy process of reestablishing order, justice after a civil war. It's vividly depicted here. David pardoning Shimei reflects his desire for peaceful reintegration of all factions, a powerful act of clemency.
Right.
But his ambiguous resolution with Mephibosheth, leaving Ziba's deception partly unresolved, shows the difficulty of fully unraveling and correcting injustices. Maybe due to the king's weariness, his doubts, or just the sheer number of issues demanding his attention.
Yeah, it could be any of those.
And that lingering dispute between Judah and Israel over the king's return. It serves as this powerful foreshadowing of future national divisions. Those persistent tribal loyalties keep challenging the unity David worked so hard to achieve.
So the return isn't just a simple triumph.
Not at all. It's a fragile peace, marked by both forgiveness and unresolved issues. It underscores the ongoing challenges of maintaining a unified kingdom forged from these disparate, often rival tribes.
And just as things seem to be settling,
Yep.
boom, a new rebellion erupts, demands swift, brutal action.
Ziba's revolt.
Exactly. Let's unpack this. 2 Samuel 20, verses 1 and 2. Right in the middle of that tribal dispute, this troublemaker named Sheba, a Benjaminite, Saul's tribe, remember, blows a ram's horn, and he instigates a new revolt. Rallies many men of Israel with this defiant cry, "We have no share in David. We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel."
A direct challenge to David's legitimacy.
Immediately draws many men of Israel away from following David. Shows just how deep those tribal resentments ran, how fragile the unity was.
And so David has to respond quickly.
Yes. He instructs Amasa, whom he had recently appointed army commander, replacing Joab perhaps as a conciliatory move after Absalom's death.
Right. Amasa had commanded Absalom's army.
Yes. David tells Amasa to gather Judah's forces within 3 days to pursue Sheba. But Amasa delays, verses 4 to 5.
Uh-oh, not good.
Not good for Amasa. Joab, ever the ruthless pragmatist, takes command of the pursuit, verses 6-13. He meets Amasa at the Great Stone in Gibeon.
And Joab sees his chance.
Feigning a friendly greeting, he grabs Amasa's beard as if to kiss him, but instead he runs him through with his sword right into the abdomen, kills him instantly, leaves him lying in the road.
Just like Abner,
Right.
ruthless.
Eliminates a rival, ruthlessly reasserts his own command. Then, in verses 14 to 22, Joab, now firmly in charge, pursues Sheba to the city of Abel of Beth-Makkah, way up north,
Besieges the city.
starts building a siege ramp. But then, a wise woman from inside the city walls calls out to Joab.
Another wise woman intervention.
Yes, she cleverly negotiates with him. She points out the city's reputation for wisdom and peace, asks why Joab wants to destroy a mother city in Israel. Joab clarifies he only wants Sheba. She persuades the city's inhabitants. behead Sheba, throw his head over the wall to Joab.
And they do it.
They do it. This swift act ends the revolt without further bloodshed for the city. Joab sounds the trumpet, his army disperses, returns to Jerusalem, revolt over.
And Sheba's rebellion. It powerfully demonstrates the persistent fragility of national unity in Israel. Those deep-seated tribal tensions just kept simmering, ready to flare up.
Yeah.
And Joab's immediate, brutally efficient elimination of Amasa, who David had appointed over him, and then Sheba. It underscores his unwavering, if terrifying, loyalty to David's kingship. Even if his methods are merciless, self-serving, and often defy David's orders or wishes, he's the instrument of the king's power, whether David likes it or not.
Still the enforcer.
Still the essential, albeit morally ambiguous enforcer, he constantly ensures David's rule is secured, threats are neutralized, whatever the personal or ethical cost. It reveals the dark compromises sometimes deemed necessary for political stability in this turbulent era. This constant need for brutal pragmatism highlights just how precarious power was, even for a great king like David.
All right, as David's reign nears its end, the kingdom faces more challenges. And David himself reflects on his life, his legacy in a powerful song.
The narrative shifts a bit here, becomes more thematic, summarizing aspects of his reign.
It does, and a surprising revelation comes first, in 2 Samuel 21, verses 1 to 14. Here's where it gets really interesting. A 3-year famine strikes the land. David inquires of Jehovah, why is this happening?
And the answer goes back to Saul.
Yes, the reason given is Saul's earlier violation of a covenant Israel had made centuries before with the Gibeonites. Saul, in his zeal, had sought to annihilate them, breaking that ancient oath.
Wow, past sins coming back to haunt the nation.
Exactly. So David seeks atonement. He asks the Gibeonites what they require. They don't want silver or gold. They want justice for Saul's actions against them. They asked for 7 of Saul's male descendants to be executed.
A grim request.
David agrees. He spares Mephibosheth because of his oath to Jonathan, but hands over 7 other descendants of Saul. They're executed by the Gibeonites. And then Rizpah, Saul's concubine, the mother of 2 of the executed men.
Her vigil is incredibly moving.
It is. She bravely guards their exposed bodies on the rock from birds of prey and wild animals from the start of the harvest until the rains came, possibly months. A powerful display of loyalty and grief. David hears about Rizpah's devotion. He then gathers the bones of Saul and Jonathan, which he'd recovered earlier, along with the bones of the 7 executed descendants, and gives them all an honorable burial in the tomb of Kish, Saul's father. Only then, the text says, does Jehovah heed their supplication for the land. The famine lifts.
That's a heavy story.
It is. Then the narrative briefly shifts back to chronicling more significant battles against the Philistines, verses 15 to 22.
Still fighting the old enemy.
Still fighting them. It highlights the continued threat from this powerful enemy and the heroic deeds of several mighty men who assist David, saving his life even, including one who kills Ishbi-Benob, a giant whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and another battle features the killing of a giant with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot.
Reminds you of Goliath. The threat was ongoing.
Definitely. Then in chapter 22, we get David's Song of Salvation.
A major piece, almost identical to Psalm 18.
Yes. It's profound, lengthy. David sings this powerful song of deliverance and praise to Jehovah, thanks him for rescuing him from all his enemies and specifically from the hand of Saul.
What's the core message?
He describes Jehovah as his rock, fortress, and deliverer, paints vivid imagery of God's awesome power, his intervention in times of distress, earthquakes, smoke, fire, darkness, thunder, and over, his unwavering support for David. The song reflects on David's own integrity, his blamelessness in God's eyes, and God's just response based on that righteousness. It details God's powerful acts, scattering foes, subduing nations under him. It's really his personal testimony of faith and divine faithfulness throughout his tumultuous life.
And that famine story, linked to Saul's past actions, it powerfully underscores that persistent biblical theme, generational consequences for national sins, and the critical importance of covenants, even ancient ones, being honored.
Right.
The ongoing Philistine wars remind us that even in periods of relative peace and consolidation, the kingdom's security was constantly tested. It required strong military defense, the valor of David's mighty men.
They were crucial.
Absolutely. And David's Song of Salvation is such a profound expression of his personal faith, his deep understanding of God's role in his life, his victories. It gives us invaluable insight into David's inner world, his profound reliance on divine support, his retrospective sense of God's faithfulness, especially after navigating such turbulent years of both personal failing and public strife. It's his theology laid bare, his spiritual resilience on display.
Okay, as the narrative approaches its conclusion, we hear David's final reflections on his reign, and we're formally introduced to the valiant men who served him.
Wrapping things up, looking back.
Exactly. In 2 Samuel 23, verses 1 to 7, David offers his final poetic words, his last words. He reflects on his reign as a just ruler, speaking of the Rock of Israel, a king who rules in the fear of God like the light of morning. He describes his covenant with God, that everlasting dynasty promise, as everlasting and secure, well-ordered in all things. It highlights his enduring faith in that divine promise, despite all the struggles, personal and national.
A statement of ultimate trust.
It feels like it. Then, verses 8 to 39 give us this detailed list, this honor roll of David's most valiant warriors and their extraordinary deeds.
The mighty men.
The mighty men. It's a testament to the individual bravery, the loyalty that underpinned David's success. We hear of specific heroic acts, like that famous episode with the water from Bethlehem.
Oh yeah, that's incredible.
David is at the stronghold of Adullam. The Philistines have a garrison in Bethlehem, his hometown. He expresses a longing, oh, that someone would give me a drink of water from the cistern of Bethlehem that is by the gate.
Just an offhand wish.
But 3 of his mighty men, the text doesn't name them here, but tradition holds it might be Jashabim, Eleazar, and Shammah Hiram. They risk their lives, break through the Philistine lines, draw water from the well, and bring it back to David.
Incredible bravery and loyalty.
And David's reaction, he refuses to drink it. He pours it out as an offering to Jehovah, says, "It is unthinkable on my part, O Jehovah, that I should do this. Is it not the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives?" He wouldn't drink what cost his men so much.
Wow. Deep respect for his men.
Deep respect. The list also includes others like Abishai, Joab's brother, credited with striking down 300 men with his spear, and Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a real powerhouse, struck down 2 powerful warriors of Moab, killed a lion in a pit on a snowy day, even killed a formidable Egyptian giant with the Egyptian's own spear.
These guys were legends.
They really were. The list names many more, including Uriah the Hittite, poignantly.
And David's last words. They serve as this powerful retrospective on his reign, his deepest understanding of righteous leadership, the divine covenant that sustained him. It's his final summary of his life's guiding principles. And that detailed list of the mighty men, their specific heroic acts, it highlights the critical support system that enabled David's military successes, contributed significantly to the strength, the security of his kingdom. It's a testament to the collective effort behind a great king.
He didn't do it alone.
Not at all. These final sections solidify David's legacy. They portray him not just through his own deeds, but also through the unwavering loyalty, the extraordinary courage, the sheer strength of those who served him. It reminds us that no leader achieves greatness alone. A king's strength is often a reflection of the caliber of the people he leads and surrounds himself with.
And the book concludes with this puzzling, controversial act by David, a census that brings immediate, severe consequences, followed by an act of atonement.
Yeah, the census is a tricky passage.
It is. 2 Samuel 24, verses 1 to 9. David, incited by Jehovah's anger against Israel, though 1 Chronicles 21 says Satan cited him a theological complexity, orders Joab to conduct a census of Israel and Judah, count the fighting men.
And Joab objects. That's unusual.
Very unusual for Joab to question a direct order on moral grounds. He objects, sensing it's wrong. He says, "May Jehovah your God multiply the people 100 times over, but why does my lord the king desire this thing?" He clearly thinks it's a bad idea.
But David insists.
David insists. Joab ultimately carries it out. It takes over 9 months. The census reveals 800,000 valiant men who drew the sword in Israel and 500,000 men in Judah, a massive fighting force.
And then David feels guilty.
Immediately. His conscience strikes him right after the census report comes in. He confesses his sin to Jehovah. "I have sinned greatly in what I have done. I have acted very foolishly." God sends the prophet Gad to David, offering a choice of 3 punishments: 7 years of famine, 3 months of fleeing before his enemies, or 3 days of pestilence in the land.
A terrible choice.
David chooses the 3-day pestilence. His reasoning: "Let us fall, please, into the hand of Jehovah, for his mercy is great, but do not let me fall into the hand of man."
Trusting God's mercy over human cruelty.
Right. Tragically, 70,000 people die across Israel from the plague. The destroying angel reaches Jerusalem, is poised to strike the city, near the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David sees the angel, intercedes, pleads for the people. "It is I who have sinned, but these sheep, what have they done? Let your hand, please, be against me and against my father's house." Jehovah relents. The plague is stopped.
And David needs to atone.
Gad tells him to build an altar to Jehovah on Araunah's threshing floor. David goes to buy it. Araunah sees the king coming, bows down, offers the threshing floor, the oxen for sacrifice, the wooden threshing sledges for fuel, all for free. A generous offer.
But David refuses the free gift.
Yes, and his reason is profound. Verse 24, "No, but I will buy it from you for a price, and I will not offer burnt sacrifices to Jehovah my God that cost me nothing." He insists on paying the full price, 50 shekels of silver for the threshing floor and oxen, though Chronicles mentions a much larger sum for the whole site later. He builds the altar, offers sacrifices, and Jehovah responds to the plea for the land. The plague stops. A powerful final scene.
And the immediate, severe consequence of David's decision to number the people is depicted as an act that incurs divine punishment.
Why was it so wrong?
The motivation is complex, debated. Some interpretations suggest it was an act of pride, relying on human military strength rather than trusting in God's providence, maybe a failure of faith. Whatever the specific reason, the outcome highlights the serious implications of actions, even those of a king, when they're not aligned with divine will or that deep trust in God. And David's final act, insisting on offering sacrifices that cost me nothing. That's such a powerful, poignant statement. It speaks volumes about genuine repentance, true atonement. The understanding that acts of devotion, acts of making amends, must involve personal sacrifice. It's not about convenience or cheap grace. It's about a sincere giving from the heart.
It really makes you think.
It does. It raises that important question. What does it truly mean to make amends, to atone for a misstep? And why is personal cost, genuine sacrifice, often depicted as this essential, maybe even non-negotiable component of that process? In so many contexts, ancient and modern.
So what does this all mean? Wow. We've journeyed through the incredibly turbulent, deeply human reign of King David. From his strategic rise amidst the fall of Saul's house, to the internal strife, the external conflicts that defined his rule, right up to his final acts. We've seen him as, well, a man of immense faith and devastating flaws, a unifying leader and a grieving father.
A complex figure.
Incredibly complex. We've unpacked key themes that just continue to resonate, don't they? The immense weight of leadership, the far-reaching ripple effects of personal choices, the enduring power of covenants, and that constant, often painful tension between personal desire and public responsibility.
Absolutely. And the book of Samuel offers this remarkably candid, unfiltered portrayal of a truly complex leader. It's far more than just a historical chronicle of a king.
Right.
It's a profound human drama. It delves deep into these universal themes: power, justice, loyalty, family, betrayal, divine purpose. It vividly illustrates that even the greatest, most divinely favored leaders are susceptible to moral failings.
Yeah, painfully so.
And that their actions, both good and bad, have immediate and far-reaching consequences, impacting not just their own lives, but the destiny of their entire nation.
Which brings us back to that question for you, our listeners.
What surprising echoes of David's immense challenges, his profound triumphs, do you recognize in leaders or situations today, even thousands of years later? Think about those enduring lessons about power, loyalty, integrity, and the often unforeseen consequences of our choices. Out of everything we've explored today in Tevi Samuel, what stands out to you as the most impactful lesson or insight from David's extraordinary, complex, and deeply human journey?